This video is requested by one of my subscribers, and he wanted to know what is the metaverse. So I decided I would do a video on it so you can get an understanding of what the metaverse is. So we're going to go through this article and we may skip around. So let's get into it. So this is Chris Johnson from Jumpstart IT Academy. And Jumpstart IT Academy is a premier coaching and course delivery education company. And we pretty much help new students or people who are new to technology to jump on board. And we encourage them to get on the fast track. It's a online digital mentoring program we created for new professionals or existing professionals to transition into a tech career field where there's an abundance of opportunity. So let's get into this article. The metaverse is the future of the internet, or it's a video game, or maybe it's a deeply uncomfortable worse version of Zoom. It's hard to say. To a certain extent, talking about what the metaverse means is a bit like having a discussion about what the internet means in the 1970s. The building blocks of a new form of communication were in the process of being built, but no one could really know what the reality would look like. So while it was true at the time the internet was coming, not every idea of what it would look like is true. Now, what they're telling you here is this. It's that they don't really even know what the metaverse is going to be like, which is why they're leading with a question. They're leading with questions because the metaverse is in a state right now where essentially, in a nutshell, it's going to be a combination or conglomeration of all different technologies, functions, and technological advancements that you can even possibly think of. It's going to be a central location of opportunity and potential and expansion of imagination and ideas and interactivity, with the key foundation being to enhance human communication. Let's scroll up. And all this is my opinion, and I'm reading this and I'm just going to break it down to you based on my understanding of technology and literally how the world works. But nonetheless, it is my opinion. On the other hand, there's also a lot of marketing hype wrapped up in this idea of the metaverse. Facebook in particular is in an especially vulnerable place after Apple's move to limit ad tracking hit the company's bottom line. It's impossible to separate Facebook's vision of a future where everyone has a digital wardrobe to swipe through from the fact that Facebook really wants to make money selling virtual clothes. So with all that in mind, seriously, what does metaverse mean? Now, the idea of Facebook wanting to sell digital clothes seems silly. It's no different than when I was growing up and then bottled water started to be sold. I thought to myself, why in the world would someone buy bottled water when it comes right out of the faucet? Not understanding that the water system had been compromised with all sorts of, poisons or chemicals, whatever. I'm not a scientist, so I don't know. But nonetheless, people deemed it unsafe to drink the water directly out of the fountain because it wasn't as pure, and in some form or fashion, it was considered contaminated, and the bottled waters was going to solve that problem. And pretty much there was a transition where we no longer drank out of the faucet, just get in a cup and just drink it out of the faucet, and we drink from, bottled water. Now, some of you who have never even drank out of the faucet ever in your life, and you find it hard to believe that that's what we used to do, but it's true. And the metaverse is going to be like that as well. People that grow up in the future are going to know the metaverse for being the metaverse. And the people that transition into the metaverse or saw its initial stages of growth and development, they're going to have a different idea of the metaverse than someone like you or I hearing this video today. So just understand, in a scenario of buying virtual clothes, it can be a reality because the metaverse is going to be a combination of physical and virtual. I'll give you an idea of how that could work. Let's say, for example, that you buy clothes at the store. And you buy clothes at the store and there's an ID tag on it that allows you to insert a code into your user avatar on the metaverse. And you enter that, and then now you have access to wearing those clothes in the metaverse as well as in real life. The metaverse is going to be a combination of reality and fantasy. How did we get here? I'm going to give you a brief understanding from my point of view and perspective of how I believe we got here. Well, essentially, the society is saturated with movies and entertainment, whether it be sports or whether it be drama, and all these types of entertainments people have grown accustomed to. In this society, it functions primarily by entertainment. And all this entertainment, the citizens or society has really pretty much grown accustomed to it. And they interact that entertainment in their real life, meaning there are people. I know a teacher who teaches a class in high school. And she told me that a student was arguing their point by stating that they saw it in a movie. And the teacher laughed, but the student didn't, because the student was being very serious. The movie was their reference point for life. And if you think about people using movies to reference or interact or make decisions in life, it seems silly because it's a script created by the imagination of a person. But nonetheless, society is so inundated with entertainment and that they make decisions and life decisions, and they change the way they live based on what they see in the movies. And I can give you my exhibit A by stating I watched the news and there was a very horrific event that took place. I've watched several news videos, and these are two separate news videos. And the witnesses said that it was like a movie. So in other words, you have people referencing fantasy to describe reality, meaning that it's as if reality and fantasy has blended and they cannot distinguish the difference, so much so that they don't really realize that a lot of these movies either come from someone's imagination or they are depictions of through actors of something that really occurred in real life, but yet they attribute movies as being more real than real life. And that's the metaverse. The metaverse is going to be like that. So if you buy a shirt at the store, I can possibly see there be some sort of tag where you would enter it in, and in your metaverse avatar ID or whatever it is they use to identify, and it would give you access to wear that shirt in the metaverse. So hopefully that gives you a better understanding, is that people have used movies and entertainment and they are already essentially living in the metaverse. It's just that now they're going to take movies, entertainment, and video games, and they're literally going to combine it into like the ultimate virtual reality. Picture the metaverse being a movie that is real and you're in it and you're like a star in it, and you can do and say or become anything that you want in a metaverse. All you need is to either have the digital currency to do it or the ability to gain the functionality. And people who play video games understand what I'm talking about. There's certain codes you can put in that will give you access to do more things. And so picture the metaverse like that. You will be unlimited in what you can do. It's just a matter of figuring out how you can get access to a certain level, a certain function, or a certain feature. Seriously, what does metaverse mean? To help you get a sense of how vague and complex a term the metaverse can be, here's an exercise to try. Mentally replace the phrase the metaverse in a sentence with cyberspace. 90% of the time, the meaning won't substantially change. That's because the term doesn't really refer to any one specific type of technology, but rather a broad shift in how we interact with technology. And that's the point that I want to make. The metaverse is not going, there's going to be certain things that are unfamiliar to people in the metaverse. Remember, this is my opinion, but I believe that the function, they're accustomed to the function, is just that there's going to be some enhancement or advancement to them and their perception because of the accessibility and the convenience and the speed in which they're able to do things in the metaverse. So their interactivity will be more enhanced, giving them the thought that the function on the back end is different, but it's not. It's just that the accessibility and the speed is there, meaning that if there was a virtual concert in the metaverse, but yet there was a sporting event, someone can literally pay a metaverse ticket to virtually go to the concert, which is happening in real life at the same time, because the avatar of the person singing the concert is actually physically in the stadium singing, and they are also virtually in the metaverse singing, and the sports team is physically playing, but they're also virtually playing. And so someone would be able to attend a concert, and when they wanted to take a break, they can actually go to the sports event that they were attending, and it would be a real sports event that is happening place in real life, but you can visualize it through avatars of the team that's physically playing in the physical world. Hopefully you're starting to get an understanding that in the metaverse, there's going to be a combination and a blending and blurring of physical and virtual reality. To help you get a sense of how vague and complex a term metaverse can be, here's an exercise to try. Mentally replace the Broadly speaking, the technologies that make up the metaverse can include virtual reality, characterized by persistent virtual worlds that continue to exist even when you're not playing, as well as augmented reality that combines aspects of the digital and physical world. However, it doesn't require that those spaces be exclusively accessed via VR or AR, virtual reality or artificial reality. A virtual world, like aspects of Fortnite, can be accessed through PC, game consoles, or even phones, could be metaversal. Now, what I want you to understand is this. I want you to understand that when they mention PCs, game consoles, and even phones could be metaversal, I want you to understand from a technology perspective, all those are simply end user devices, meaning devices that allow a end user to interact with the internet. But in the metaverse, what's going to happen is this. The person, I believe in the metaverse, the person is going to be the end user. So in the metaverse, you will no longer need certain things. Now, some things you're going to need because you're going to need some type of device to hear and connect, but they're going to be different because some of this connectivity, I believe, will be integrated into the person's body. And I believe in the metaverse that they're going to use Internet of Things to take advantage of sensors. And I believe the metaverse is going to become so real that people will be able to taste, see, and smell and touch in the virtual world. And actually it feels real in the physical world. And I believe that it's going to be so enhanced that it's going to change laws and law. Because I believe that think about if someone slapped someone in the virtual world of the metaverse and they felt it. Well, in the physical world, that's called assault, where I believe that if the metaverse occurs and gets structured and enhanced the way that I envisioned it, I believe that if someone slaps someone in the virtual world, I know it seems silly, but they can actually be sued in the real world. In other words, you'll have someone that will be physically put in jail, and their virtual avatar could be put in a prison as well. So let's move forward. It also translates to a digital economy where users can create, buy, and sell goods. And in the more idealistic versions of the metaverse, it's interoperable, allowing you to take virtual items like clothes or cars from one platform to another. In the real world, you can buy a shirt from the mall and then wear it to a movie theater. Right now, most platforms have virtual identities, avatars, and inventories that are tied to just one platform. But a metaverse might allow you to create a persona that you can take everywhere as easily as you can copy your profile picture from one social network to another. Now, when I look at this right here, I tie it into what we see in reality, which is the system that we are in is commercialized, meaning it's about buying and selling goods and services. So that when you picture the metaverse, I want you to start understanding that what you see in reality is going to be in the metaverse. It's just, so look at it from the perspective of a large company. they have products and services, and they, in the real world, what do? They put advertisements on television, on the internet. They put advertisements on billboards driving down the freeway. Well, in the metaverse, those same companies are going to be paying for advertising real estate in the virtual world as well. And I believe that they will be paying digital money to people to be using those spaces, or maybe some of the spaces they own themselves, so that they can sell their products and services. Because essentially in the physical world, companies are selling their products and services, and they're tracking demographics. They're tracking where people are going, because where the people are at, they want to be there because the people have the money to buy their goods and services. And it's no different with the metaverse. People are going to be buying goods and services in the metaverse. And so these companies are going to position themselves so that they can have credibility and be relative in this new economy and these new opportunities that are taking place. And if they don't prepare themselves, then they are going to be at a lack, meaning that companies have to position themselves now to get into the metaverse so that they're not left behind. Because once the metaverse has locked into the demographics and people develop their trends and what they do and what they don't do, and if companies don't position their products and services to make it convenient for others who are interacting in this metaverse, then they're pretty much going to be left behind, and these companies will go out of business. I'll give you an understanding. Like Kodak made physical film, and they were told and they were aware that the demographics were starting to use digital film. Kodak decided not to strategically position their business strategy towards digital pictures, so they were left behind, and no one really knows about Kodak. But people know about taking digital pictures with a smartphone. So just keep that in mind, that companies, from a company perspective, these companies who are buying and selling services, they have to position themselves in the metaverse so their company can be viable in the future. So as we, as end users, people who are looking on the outside and looking at the metaverse, we're sort of looking at it as, what is it going to be like? Companies can't look at the metaverse that way. Companies have to look at the metaverse from the perspective of their own viability, and they have to look at it from their own bottom line. They have to say to themselves, how can we profit from this, or how can we lose profit from this? Instead of being scared like Kodak was in terms of making that change, if they don't make the change, then they're going to be changed by the change, and which typically means that they will experience, attrition, or they will be basically they'll lose relativity. They'll lose relativity in terms of the perspective from the customers. They're just not. If their companies don't make it convenient, people aren't going to utilize them, nor will they hold them in high regard. It's difficult to parse what all this means, because when you hear descriptions like those above, an understandable response is, wait, doesn't that exist already? And then they go into certain things like World of Warcraft or Fortnite. They go into concerts, virtual concerts, and I want you to understand that all these things do exist, but just like I gave you the scenario before, the convenience of interacting with these things is going to increase significantly. Meaning, let's look at a sports team. Let's say a sports team, you can buy a ticket to physically enter. Well, there will be people who may pay for certain metaverse interactivity with the sports team. So that's something that would create different streamlines of income for a lot of different companies. And companies have to start thinking about that right now, or else they're going to get left behind. And then they're going to be feeling really bad because they didn't have the vision to see the opportunity. And the same thing goes for customers or end users who plan on using the metaverse. They need to start thinking of opportunities or how they might interact in the metaverse. Like, for example, in this article, I believe it hints towards, let's say, people that work from home. Let's say somebody works from home. Well, if you work from home, companies may require that you have a virtual avatar that goes to the virtual company office, and you sit there and you do your work in the metaverse. So people who are saying that we're not going to go into the metaverse, just understand you're essentially saying that you're not going to have a job, because right now in the physical world, there's minimum virtual accountability, but in the metaverse, your avatar is going to be interacting with certain people. Perhaps you're sitting somewhere in your avatar and you're doing your work, but you're physically doing your work, or you're physically sitting down at your house, but virtually you're doing the same work, but you're doing it in the metaverse. But when you click the computer in the metaverse, it literally prints out or sends an email, and you have it in your email on your phone in the physical world, but also your metaverse coworker avatar receives it, and they receive it in the physical. I hope this doesn't confuse you, but this is just my opinion on the imaginative capabilities of the metaverse. It says, let's just move forward. On the other hand, just as it would be accurate to say that Google builds part of the internet from physical data centers to security layers, it's similarly accurate to say that Fortnite creator Epic Games is building parts of the metaverse. Now, I hear what they're saying in this particular instance, but I want you to keep this in mind. I want you to think to yourself that you're already in the metaverse, and I described the scenario of people already confusing reality and movies, and they reference movies when they're watching reality. So therefore, there's already legitimacy for the metaverse existing in function through perception of most people. And I just want you to understand that these certain technologies that you already see will be in the metaverse. So the technology that already exists is going to be there to some extent. And I believe that it's going to be more enhanced because it's advantageous for companies to become more innovative and unleash features that will give them more profits. And other companies are going to benchmark, copy what these other companies are doing, or buy licenses to access that feature to enhance their own products and services. So the metaverse is going to be a place where business experience and user experience is going to be at levels that you could never imagine. Innovation, I believe, will increase immensely because of the closeness of interactivity of the metaverse and the benefit that each company gets when there's enhancements in the metaverse that can literally cause these companies to be able to reach the demographics through their products and services quicker or with more convenience. So components of the metaverse do already exist, because essentially what's in the physical is just going to be moved over to the virtual through functionality. So it says here, it's at this point that most discussions of what the metaverse entails start to stall. We have a vague sense of what things currently exist that we could kind of call the metaverse. And we know which companies are investing in the idea, but we still don't know what it is. Facebook, Meta, still not getting it, meaning that some people are having a difficult time transitioning from calling Facebook Meta. That's what the writer is saying here. Thinks it will include fake houses you can invite all your friends to hang out in. Microsoft seems to think it could involve virtual meeting rooms to train new hires or chat with your remote coworkers. This is what I was hinting at earlier. I think that the metaverse is going to involve a level of control, but also a level of freedom that people have never experienced before. But for people who want their own autonomy, I don't think the metaverse is going to be a place for them, because if you have to have some sort of technology inside of your body to interact with the metaverse, that technology is going to be licensed. So therefore, whoever owns the license to that technology or the patents, they have certain ownership over the patents and your interactivity in the metaverse. So therefore, a person's it's just like you own your PC. Well, what if you are the PC and you have access and freedom to your physical body because there's no enhancement to it. But companies are going to create technologies that enhance the user's interaction with the metaverse. Therefore, the licensing is going to cause those companies to own the real estate the licensing is functioning off of. And that real estate would happen to be what I believe the end user, which is the person. So just keep that in mind. It's going to be a very weird time and transition into this metaverse thing. But just also remember, I'm giving you a scenario based on my technological experience and based on what I've seen in changes and shifts in the world and how society has shifted over the decades. The pitches for these visions of the future range from optimistic to outright fan fiction. At one point during Meta's presentation on the metaverse, the company showed a scenario in which a young woman is sitting on her couch, scrolling through Instagram when she sees a video of a friend posting of a concert that's happening halfway across the world. And I believe that somebody will be in their virtual couch on Instagram and they can post something on Instagram. And I believe it'll actually, if they were in the physical, they'd be able to see it. No different than the email scenario that I described earlier. The video then cuts to the concert where the woman appears in Avenger-style hologram. She's able to make eye contact with her friend who is physically there. They're both able to hear the concert and they can see floating text hovering above the stage. This seems cool, but it's not really advertising a real product or even a possible future one. In fact, it brings us to the biggest problem with the metaverse. Why does the metaverse involve holograms? Like I told you, I think that the metaverse is going to be a conglomeration of all types of technologies that certain people would say, I'm not interested in that. I'm not going to use that. But when they get into the metaverse, they may have a certain thing that they do that would be greatly enhanced if they use something that on the physical, they would say, well, I'm not going to do that. Like, for example, there's people who say, well, I'm not going to play video games, or I'm not going to play Fortnite, or I don't go to concerts. But in the metaverse, it's going to be different. The convenience level is going to be so different because some people are not limited by preferences. They're limited by convenience and accessibility. Well, a lot of those limitations to convenience and accessibility are going to be removed in the metaverse, just like the internet removed the limitation and convenience and connectivity and communication. Because when I grew up, like I said, we talked on telephones. That's how you talked, or you physically had to be there by traveling. But in this case, it breaks the barriers of traveling because the virtual experience could be so real. Not just with avatars, but with what they're talking about with holograms. And that's where I get into the transition of Yuri in the metaverse, because we've seen scenarios like this in movies where holograms have visited people and, with a scene where the hologram was talking to the person and it just seems so real. Well, I believe that that's how the metaverse will be, but I think it's going to be very expensive to get certain functions in the metaverse. And the rich in the metaverse, I believe, will be distinguished by features, not only by features, but the clothes they wear, the car they drive, and the house that they live in. And it's going to be a reflection of their life in the physical. That's what I believe is going to happen. In other words, there's going to be a separation based on wealth, because I believe wealth will give access to more enhancement in the metaverse for the avatar or the user that's interacting with it. So when the internet first arrived, it started with a series of technological innovations like the ability to let computers talk to each other over great distances, or the ability to hyperlink from one web page to another. These technical features were the building blocks that were then used to make the abstract structures we know for the internet, or we know the internet for: websites, apps, social networks, and everything else that relies on the core elements. And that's to say nothing of the convergence of the interface innovations that aren't strictly part of the internet, but are still necessary to make it work, such as displays, keyboards, mice, and touchscreens. This is where I was talking about as far as interactivity. I believe in the metaverse, interactivity is going to be on the basis of just sound, or is going to be on vocal commands, that a person will be able to go be in a sports event in the metaverse that's physically taking place, and then say something and command that their avatar be in the concert, maybe in the front row, and it will be as if they're there, because they will hear the sound of the concert. And if the singer in the physical makes a mistake, they'll actually see it in the virtual world. So what I think is that the end user is going to have such a rich experience in the metaverse, and so a lot of these things that made up our experience with the internet are going to go away. Excuse me. With the metaverse, there are some new building blocks in place, like the ability to host hundreds of people in a single instance over a server. Ideally, future versions of a metaverse will be able to handle thousands or even millions of people at once. Or motion tracking tools that can distinguish where a person is looking or where their hands are. These new technologies can be very exciting and feel futuristic. However, there are limitations that may be impossible to overcome. When tech companies like Microsoft or Meta show fictionalized videos of their visions of the future, they frequently tend to gloss over just how people will interact with the metaverse. What they're telling you is that they're still in the process of exploring the capability and the possibilities of the metaverse. And from an end user perspective, I mean, you're just sort of in a seat where you're just watching and waiting. But companies at this point need to be more interactive. But from the person, like if you're just looking at this and you have a job and you go to work and you don't run a big company or something like that, then you're probably thinking to yourself, or you should be thinking, how is this going to change the job economy? That's what you need to start thinking about. You need to start thinking about how is this going to change the job economy, because that is the level where it's going to impact you. So when you think of the metaverse, just instead of looking at it on some big, large scale of this is going to be there, that's going to be there, I would narrow it down a lot, and just basically say, how is the metaverse going to impact me? And then start exploring from that perspective, because that's essentially what companies are doing. But they've got employees that can essentially be some mastermind to position them so that they can transition and thrive. And I want you to transition and thrive. So I want you to start exploring and asking yourself questions as far as, in this new virtual world that's being created alongside this physical world, how's it going to impact me, and how am I going to adjust, and how am I going to interact with the metaverse? Because it's going to question a lot of your beliefs. It's going to question a lot of the the way that you think, how you the things that you don't or do believe in. It's really going to create a line in the sand as far as how far people are going to be willing to interact with technology. I believe that is going to be the challenge. And that's a personal challenge. So I'm not going to go into that in detail, but I will present to you the thought that you should start asking yourself those questions now rather than asking them later, when those decisions will be made to you simply out of necessity. Let's move forward. Let's see here. And they're talking about augmented reality glasses face a similar problem on top of not insignificant issue of figuring out how people can wear them around in public without looking like huge dorks. They're basically saying that there's a growth period in this technology where people are going to have to adjust to some of the inconveniences of the tools that are going to be used to unleash or interact or interface with the metaverse. In other words, it's going to be clunky at first, but then in the future, it's just going to get better. And that's just how it was with the internet. We had Netscape, and in order for you to get to a website, you had to type the entire URL in. Nowadays, it's not like that. They've got DNS, which is domain name system, and you can just type in a name, and that name will translate into to the the numbering that they have in the back end. It's called IP addressing, but I'm not going to get into that. But my point is that you're just going to adjust with these changes as they go, just like we did when the internet first came. It was just an adjustment. The internet was extremely slow when it first started, but just the fact that you can communicate with somebody or send an email or look at a web page for somebody's products and services, it was, and then when they added video, it just slowly enhanced. And now all the enhancements that we have on the internet, everybody just takes for granted, and it's just convenient and it's normal. And that's the way the metaverse, I believe, is going to be. It's going to get to that point. So how do tech companies show off the idea of their technology without having the reality of bulky headsets or dorky glasses? So far, the primary solution seems to be to simply fabricate technology from the whole cloth. The holographic woman from Meta's presentation. I hate to shatter the illusion, but it's simply not possible with even very advanced versions of existing technology. I hear what this person of the article is saying, but this person is not in all these different companies. Some companies, you got to realize that I believe some companies withhold technology and they wait. Some technology is so innovative, I believe, that they're not going to release it because it doesn't have the capability to scale. On a small scale, they can do it, but they're just waiting for certain technologies to come in place for it all to work together, essentially. So I think the person writing the article is sort of downplaying the possibilities of the metaverse, and I'm not going to do that. I'm actually just going to be fully imaginative based on capabilities of functions that already exist. And if you put all those functions and technologies in one place, to me, it's just going to turn communications on steroids, and the limitation will only be imagination. So this person writing this article is sort of saying, I don't know if this can happen. I don't know if that can happen. And I'm saying some of these things are already happening. It's just a matter of creating an interface to allow two different functions to work together. And if it's to the advantage of companies to sell products and services, believe me, they're going to get some people into a think tank, and they're going to get their engineers together to be able to piece it together to make it easier for their companies to bring products and services to people to increase their bottom line. Unlike motion tracked digital avatars, which are kind of, they said, janky right now, but could be better someday, there's no janky version of making a three-dimensional picture appear in midair without tightly controlled circumstances, no matter what Iron Man tells you. Perhaps these are meant to be interpreted as images projected via glass. Both women in the demo video are wearing similar glasses after all, but even that assumes a lot about the physical capabilities of compact glasses, which Snap can tell you isn't simple problem to solve. They keep talking about the problems that need to be solved, but I want you to focus on the fact that I believe that in the future with the metaverse, you're going to see alliances of companies. Now they're going to align themselves because it benefits everyone to solve a certain problem. Now in this existing environment, in the physical and the internet, it doesn't benefit a company to work with another company or build some form of alliance, even competitors. But I think in the metaverse, those competitive walls are going to come down a little bit, maybe a lot, because everyone will benefit from breaking the barriers of technological blockages. The kind of glossing over reality is frequently present in video demos of how the metaverse could work. Another of meta demos showed characters floating in space. Is this person strapped in an immersive aerial rig, or are they just sitting at a desk? A person representing by a hologram, does this person have a headset on? And if so, how is their face being scanned? At points, a person grabs virtual items, but then holds those items in what seems to be their physical hand. The demo raises so many questions than it answers. And anything that you see came from imagination. Someone had to imagine it. So therefore, if they're already imagining it and they see functions and software out there that could possibly cause it to work, they're going to keep investing money in it, and they're going to wait until the other components mature enough to be able to utilize it. In other words, I don't see them doing a demo just for, a circus trick, because I imagine the demo costs them a lot of money to invest in to perform it. Therefore, they're not going to invest money in their companies. They're going to invest money into something that's not going to gain a profit. So this person who wrote the article is sort of downplaying the possibilities of the why behind the prototype, but they don't have the full vision of the companies who invested the money to do it. Companies invest money because they want a return on investment. They don't invest money so they can show you ideas that are possible so that you can write articles and make claims that, well, this technology doesn't exist, so I don't see how this is going to work. To me, it just shows a lack of vision from the person writing the article, and not a limitation on the technology that's being explored. On some level, this is fine. Microsoft made it, and other companies shows while demos like this are trying to give an artistic impression of what the future could be, not necessarily account for every technical question. And now they're just saying that the metaverse is going to be a fantasy world, okay? And they're saying that just these companies presenting their ideas of what the metaverse will be like, they're saying even those ideas are fantasy. And like I said, the person who wrote the article is sort of just like minimizing the capabilities of what these companies can or cannot do. And they're judging the entire metaverse by prototypes, but they're not in the meetings in these companies to determine why are they taking these prototypes so serious to invest real money in it. I personally believe they're investing the money in it because they see real credibility and possibility of this working in the metaverse. Whether it works now or whether it works in the future, I'm sure they can already come up with a price model to determine the reason why they should invest in it and create the prototype. Okay. So however, this kind of wishful thinking as tech demo leaves us in a place where it's hard to pinpoint which aspects of the various visions of the metaverse will actually be real one day. If VR and AR headsets become comfortable and cheap enough for people to wear on a daily basis, a substantial if, then perhaps the idea of virtual poker games where you and your friends and robot holograms and floating in space could be somewhat close to reality. If not, well, you could always play Tabletop Simulator or Discord video call. I can see what this person is saying, but nonetheless, I think that these companies are creating these prototypes because they sense that there is a reality of this working in the metaverse. I don't think they're just doing this on an artistic basis. I was an engineer for over 20 years, and I didn't work on any prototypes or going to any meetings where they were exploring ideas where they were doing it for artistic purposes. They were doing it for profit purposes. Let's just move on here. What's the metaverse like right now? The paradox of defining the metaverse is that in order for it to be of the future, you have to define away the present. We already have MMOs that are essentially entire virtual worlds, digital concerts, video calls with people from all over the world, online avatars and commerce platforms. So in order to sell these things in a new vision of the world, there has to be some element of it that's new. It doesn't have to be new. People buy things based on function or based on need. That creates demand. People don't buy things because they're new. So that statement is sort of flimsy. Spend enough time having discussions about the metaverse, and inevitably someone will reference fictional stories like Snow Crash, the 1992 novel that coined the term metaverse, or Ready Player One, which depicts a virtual reality world where everyone works, plays, and shops. Combined with the general pop culture idea of holograms and the heads-up displays, basically anything Iron Man has used within his last 10 movies, these stories serve as an imaginative reference point for what the metaverse, a metaverse that tech companies could actually sell as something new, could look like. The writer keeps putting an emphasis on new, and new isn't necessary. I mean, if you think about peanut butter, peanuts weren't new, but yet, there were new ways of using it, and people bought more peanut butter based on those new ways of using it, not based on the novelty of the peanut. So I'm just using that as an example to say, thinking that people are going to be moved towards the metaverse because of newness is not a motivational factor. It's going to be on the basis of convenience and functionality. And the kind of hype is as vital a part of the idea of the metaverse as any other. It's no wonder then that people promoting things like NFTs, cryptographic tokens that can serve as certificates of ownership of a digital item, sort of, are also latching onto the idea of the metaverse. Sure, NFTs are bad for the environment, but it could be argued that these tokens might be the digital key to your virtual mansion in Roblox. Then boom. You've just transformed your hobby by buying memes into a crucial piece of infrastructure for the future of the internet and possibly raise the value of all that cryptocurrency you're holding. In other words, digital products are going to gain value if there's better usability or an expanded usability in the metaverse. Something that today in the virtual world or in the internet doesn't really seem too valuable. But in the metaverse, there's going to be greater accessibility. There's the geographic landscape. Now, you would say, well, the internet isn't limited by geographic landscape. That is true. But the metaverse, just the function that's going to be enhanced in there is going to cause the interactivity between people who are not limited by geographical areas on the internet. But you're limited by function on the internet. Whereas some of those functional walls are going to be reduced in the metaverse, causing more interactivity with people all over the place across the globe. It's important to keep all this context in mind, because while it's tempting to compare the proto-metaverse ideas we have today to the early internet and assume everything will get better and progress in a linear fashion, that's not a given. There's no guarantee people will even want to hang out sans legs in a virtual office or play poker with DreamWorks Mark Zuckerberg, much less with VR or AR tech will ever become seamless enough to be as common as smartphones or computers are today. But nonetheless, I believe that when you start tying the metaverse to the physical world, there's like, for example, if onboarding for a job as an employee, you're required to create an avatar. And in that avatar, you have to interact with HR or sit in certain virtual rooms in the metaverse to go through all the onboarding process before you become an employee. Then you're going to do it, because if you want that job and you need that money, then you're going to do it. And I believe in the virtual world, the digital currency earned in the virtual world can be spent both virtually and physically, which that is going to cause the blur. And another example that I'd like to give is I talked about the T-shirt, having a digital code on the T-shirt. Well, I believe that the house that you live in, if you buy it, you can have a digital code for that, which would give you access to owning certain virtual real estate, which reflects your physical ownership. So that's something that if you tie the physical to the virtual, then it's going to cause more demand of people doing things in the virtual, because that's going to increase demand, because it's going to be based on what they have to do. It may even be the case that any real metaverse would be little more than some cool VR games and digital avatars in Zoom calls, but mostly just something we still think of as the internet. I don't think so. I think that metaverse is going to unlock like artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, all this machine language, all this advanced stuff. I think it's going to unlock that, not just for engineers, but I think if you have pre-programmed modules and that regular people can use to further interact with the metaverse, I think what you're going to see is, I think you're going to see more use of the metaverse and an increase in the function of the metaverse, simply based on demand and how people are using it. And you'll only know that once the metaverse is introduced and people start interacting with it, and then companies will respond based on what the people are doing. They're not going to invest on a feature that people aren't using. They're just simply going to enhance a feature that people are using and make those things better. And to say that it's simply going to be something small or little, I don't think so, because the people are there and the companies want to be where the people are so they can sell their products and services, and they're going to do whatever they can because those companies are competing with each other. And that pretty much sums up the article there. Let's move up. So this video here was, what is the metaverse exactly? I gave you my thoughts. I gave you my opinions. We sort of went through this article, which is by Wired. And I just wanted you to get a quick view of what the metaverse is and what could be. And just get an understanding that at this point, the term metaverse itself, they don't even, know what it means. Technically, it's just a name. But just understand, if you look at it in function, and you'll understand that the things you see around you right now, the technologies, the companies, they're just simply going to move into a virtual environment. And if you can look at it from that basic perspective, then you can get a general understanding of what the metaverse will be like. Now, all the other advanced things that I described, that's just my thoughts on the possibilities of the metaverse. That's not necessarily what the metaverse is going to be like. I don't have any inside track in anyone doing any, secret confidential projects on the metaverse, but just simply looking at the technologies that are already out and their limitation. I think that the metaverse will not be as limited as the internet. So I think that it's going to be a lot more enhanced than how the author of this article has sort of downplayed it. I think it was a great article. I think it was great ideas. I think it combined a lot of thoughts and a lot of understandings of what's really going on out there in the discussion around metaverse. But I just wanted to give you some insight and let you know how, an engineer with over 20 years of experience or 25 years of experience, how I see it, so that you can kind of put my lenses on and, tell me what you see. So leave me your remarks. Tell me what you think. Tell me your thoughts. I'd like to know what you think. And I will see you in the next video.